Okay, so the class is being recorded, and this is me, Dr. Sameh, and this is A230. This is A230A, the summer semester, and this is our fourth class, right? We've been meeting for the past 3 times, and it was all about the background to the Elizabethan age and to Shakespeare's Othello. And today we're transitioning to another play, which is The Duchess of Malfi. It's a Jacobean play. Jacobean means that it belongs to the time when King James I was the King of England. How different is the Jacobean age from the Elizabethan? Not much. Same ideologies, same ideas, except for the fact that King James was not as competent and as effective and efficient as was Queen Elizabeth I. Other than that, we still have ideas about established order, traditions that people should conform to and follow, of course, hierarchies. Perhaps the focus this time around is on rank. The hierarchy this time around is a hierarchy of ranks where people have to stick to their positions on the social ladder. You have people who are on top, aristocracy, royal family, and then after them would come the nobles and the ministers, and then you would have, in the middle, people from the middle class and down to the common man or the common people who are economically disadvantaged. They don't have much money. They struggle economically and financially and everything in between. So this is the structure that people should follow. And if they don't follow this structure, consequences are there. And they are dire and bad and everything. So the play that we're featuring tonight and next time is titled The Duchess of Malfi, where we have a duchess. A duchess is the equivalent of a queen, but using Italian terms. In Italy, during the time, there was no such thing as a king. For a king, they would use a duke, and for a queen, they would use duchess. And for a kingdom, they would use dukedom. So we have a duchess, a sitting queen. And before I spoil it for you, have you ever heard of the title, The Duchess of Malfi?
No.
No.
The famous by John, famous play by John. I forget the full name actually. I think.
Yeah, it's a play by John Webster. Yes.
Yeah, John Webster.
Are you familiar with this story? Anyone and everyone? Okay. Nice. So it's the Duchess of Malfi. The Duchess of Malfi is the heroine, the protagonist. And this is also the title of the play. It's a play. And by now you know what a play is. By now you know what a tragedy is, because it's a tragedy, and it's what we call a revenge tragedy. Okay, so play, tragedy, and revenge tragedy. And obviously, when I say revenge tragedy, that would conjure up and invoke ideas of revenge, bloodshed, animosities of all types.
Doctor,
Um,
doctor,
mm,
are you presenting
can you say
something?
excuse me لأنه I mean I was taken aback يعني كده اتخضيت.
Oh, sorry, but are you presenting
Go
something?
ahead. أيوه.
We can't see the screen.
I mean your
The
voice comes
PowerPoint.
and goes.
Uh,
I'm
we,
not
we can't
sure
see
I
the
can hear you.
PowerPoint.
Because I'm not using any now. I'm introducing the play. Are you attending
Oh,
for the
okay.
first time?
Okay, okay.
سوري دكتور، متحمسين لتل بد يا دكتور.
Talking about the Duchess of Malfi? Yes. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. See my screen. Hello? Can you see my screen?
Hello. No, not yet.
Now.
No, not yet, doctor.
Very strange. Does this apply to everyone? Because I'm sharing my screen. And it tells me that you are sharing your screen. Can you see my screen, everyone?
Not yet دكتور.
Not yet.
Now.
Still دكتور, not yet.
Fine. Wait.
Yes, now it's working دكتور.
Can you see it, everyone?
Yes.
Uh, Okay. So again, it's John Webster's The Tragedy of the Duchess of Malfi. We're doing chapters 3 and 4 on just that. So I would like for us to, before we proceed, to unpack the title of the play. The title of the play, as you can see, The Tragedy of the Duchess of Malfi. Okay, so let's divide it and dissect it. When I say a tragedy, so by now you know what a tragedy is, right? So what are you expecting when I say a tragedy? What do we know about a tragedy from our experience with Othello? If I say that the Duchess of Malfi is a tragedy, hmm?
Sad ending or death?
Yeah, tragic ending. I wouldn't say sad, it's tragic. So it's a tragic ending. It ends with the downfall of the protagonist, right? So we're starting from the end. How about the start? What kind of tragic hero do we have? And what is the trajectory of the tragedy? Can anyone be a tragic hero?
No.
No, obviously no. Tragic heroes are exceptional. They are talented, right? They can be
Yes.
leaders. They
Go
can
against the
be,
norm.
yeah, this may come later, but at this point in time, we're talking about how exceptional a tragic hero is, right? Exceptional in the sense that he or she is talented in some way. Can be a king, can be a queen, can be a military leader, can be a prince, can be a scientist like Dr. Faustus, right?
Yeah,
And
general.
yeah, and somewhere, I mean, we're loved obviously because of these qualities, but he has an error, he or she has an error in his character. And who doesn't, obviously, because he's a human being after all. And that would prompt him or her to make errors and mistakes. And one of those errors and mistakes is fatal, hence the tragic end. So, this is the trajectory of the tragic hero. That applies very much to Othello, as we have seen. And if I say the tragedy of the Duchess of Malfi, this um tells us that, yeah, this is likely to happen to the protagonist of the Duchess of Malfi. And who is the protagonist or the main character in the tragedy of the Duchess of Malfi? It's none other than the Duchess herself, which is very strange, right? We're so used to having, um, tragic heroes, males, not females, right? We can think of the tragic hero in Hamlet as Hamlet. Hamlet is a man. King Lear is a tragic hero. He is also male. Dr. Faustus is a tragic hero and he is male. Othello is a tragic hero and he is male, right? So we have a very long line of tradition of tragic heroes who are male. But this time around in the Duchess of Malfi, we have a female, which is quite unprecedented, which is quite unheard of. It didn't happen much in history and often. Okay, so the tragic hero in the Duchess of Malfi is a tragic heroine, a woman, not a man. Does it make a difference? Absolutely, and you're going to see it for yourself. one way of making this distinction would be the writer himself. We're saying that he is visionary. We're saying that he is ahead of his time by having a female as a tragic, tragic heroine. But somewhere, and in Act 4 to be more specifically, he is going to have the tragic heroine disappear. Where and when did Othello disappear in Othello? In Act 4? Did he kill himself in Act 4 or 5? I'm asking you.
Act 5.
In Act 5, right? But in this play, the tragic heroine will die in Act 4. This is obviously going against the conventions of the tragedy. And this is why lots of scholars, feminists for the most part, are going to accuse Webster of being misogynist, anti-women, and everything. We'll talk about that when the time is right. Okay, let's go back to the slides and see how things go. So again, it's the tragedy. We said that it's a tragedy. And let me add that it's not just another tragedy, it's a revenge tragedy. Revenge tragedy means that we're going to see a lot of blood shed and split and spilled. Okay? People are going to kill each other, taking revenge from each other. Okay, is it new? During the Jacobean time and during the Elizabethan time, they had no revenge tragedies? Absolutely inaccurate, because during the time there were lots of revenge tragedies. Actually, the time was known for its revenge tragedies, to the extent that those revenge tragedies started to have their own conventions, their own elements and features. You see this happening and this happening and this happening, and you say, yeah, this is a revenge tragedy. Okay? So Webster's The Tragedy of the Duchess of Malfi falls within the traditions of the revenge tragedy as we know it. We'll talk about those conventions when the time is right. Okay, so the tragedy of the Duchess of Malfi. So again, when we read the play, we found out that the Duchess of Malfi is the protagonist, the main character. Okay, if it's a tragedy and it's about a male or a man, we're going to say the tragic hero. But if it's a tragedy and the main character is a woman, we're going to say tragic heroine. So this time around, we have a tragic heroine, quite unprecedented, quite unheard of. So the Duchess of Malfi. Okay, so again, where are we? Are we in England? No, we are in Italy. Again, duchess and dukes and dukedoms are terms and royal terms that are exclusive to Italy. Okay, you cannot have a duchess without perhaps a dukedom. She is the sitting queen of the land, so obviously she has a dukedom or a kingdom. Okay, and this kingdom or dukedom is called Malfi in Italy. So where is the Duchess? Remember when we spoke about classes and hierarchies. If you have a Duchess, which is the equivalent, who is the equivalent of a queen in England, where do you see her? On top or in the middle or at the end? The Duchess.
You mean as a rank?
Where, excuse me?
You mean as a rank?
Not sure I can't hear you properly.
I
A
said you
queen
mean as
is
a
on
rank?
top as a rank, yes, as a rank, yes. On top, of course. If we're talking about a hierarchy and we have a queen or a king or a duchess, she should be on top, right? And everybody else is middle, bottom, okay? So again, according to the rule of the land and the rules of engagement, she should stay there, right? She's the queen. So what happens if you find her somehow reaching out to people under, and you will get to know at one point that she's a widow, and obviously as a widow, and I mean she wants to get married, and obviously there is nothing wrong with getting married or remarrying again, right? The only thing that people would be against would be the fact that she's trying to get married to somebody beneath her rank. Okay, if she wants to get married, she has to get married with from within her ranks. Anything else is not acceptable, and anything else will be treated very um, uh, badly. She will have to face the music, if you like. So it's love and marriage in the Malfi court. So it's primarily about love, and people fall in love, and obviously they take it to the next level and they get married, and right. So where are we? We are in the Malfi court. Malfi court. Malfi is obviously a dukedom, is like a city-state in Italy, and of course you know the royal court. And of course in the royal court we have a royal family members, princes and princesses, and right. We also have courtiers, people who assist the royal family, right? You can be a courtier, you can be working in the royal family court, but it doesn't mean, it doesn't entitle you to privileges, right? You're still not a royal family member. So you're not entitled to whatever royal family members are entitled to. They get married, to each other, but as a courtier who only works there, you're not entitled. So what happens if you're not a royal family member and you go and try to perhaps you propose to a royal family member? I'm talking about the logic of the 16th and the 17th century. Would that be acceptable? If you're a commoner who happens to work in the royal
No.
court, no, it's not acceptable because you're still like a commoner. Okay, so what happens if the Duchess herself is considering getting married to a courtier, to one of her stewards and assistants? Is that acceptable? What do you think? Does being a queen or a duchess entitle her to get married to somebody beneath her rank?
No, it wasn't
No,
acceptable.
absolutely. Yeah, it's not acceptable. It doesn't go either way. So, what if she insists? If the Duchess insists on getting married to one of her stewards, would she get away with it?
No, I think there would be punishment.
Yeah, absolutely. Consequences, dire as they are. So this is the main idea. This is the storyline, the basic storyline. We're having a Duchess who is, I mean, if you're talking about, if you look at it from perhaps a 21st century perspective, you would say that's fine. Interfaith marriages is now possible and acceptable. Intercaste marriages are now possible and acceptable. Interracial marriages are now possible and acceptable, right? But we're talking about the 16th and the 17th century. This was a no. Okay, the Duchess will insist, obviously. She will take matters into her own hands. And she's going to even propose to the steward his name is Antonio, by the way. And they will get married, and obviously in secret. And, you know, they wouldn't hide for the rest of their lives. That's secret. And she will get pregnant, and of course, people will know and stuff. So she has to pay for that because for all the admiration for her character, this is going to unfold as we proceed. You're going to find her very amicable, very nice, very beautiful. You would admire her strength of character, but still, she is a transgressor. She did something against the conventions and the traditions of her time, and she has to pay for them. And pay she did. That's why at the end, she will uh, uh, kind of fall tragically, but in Act 4, not in Act 5, like other tragic heroes, because she's a woman, obviously, and this is very misogynistic, upon the part of John Webster, like we said. And that's why perhaps we're using the dramatic framework that we call tragedy, because it's very apt and very appropriate. It's the same trajectory. You fall um, from a high place. Start off very fortunate, very well loved, very exceptional, but you end in the abyss, if you like. You fall tragically, and that's the message and the lesson that members of the audience take away with when they leave the theater, allowing for this idea of catharsis. Okay, let's move on. I'm not going to spend much time talking about Webster himself. The only thing that we need to know about Webster that he came was a contemporary to Shakespeare, and Shakespeare was like 16 years his superior or senior. Again, the Duchess of Malfi is more or less like Othello, and both of them are about forbidden love, more specifically, forbidden marriage, which would ultimately lead to the death of the lovers and many others. Forbidden because of traditions. It's not that they did something wrong or something. They wanted to legally marry and everything, but they couldn't go against the conventions and the traditions of their time. They couldn't defy it. So while Shakespeare's focus in his tragedy of love is race, Webster's focus is on class or rank. So what we have in the Duchess of Malfi, at the center of the Duchess of Malfi stands a heroine, the Duchess, not a hero. And this is, like I said, unusual and unheard of in Renaissance tragedies and in Renaissance drama in general. Again, you will detect some similarities between the Duchess of Malfi and Othello. In one such flagrant similarity would be between the character of Bisola and the Duchess of Malfi and Iago in Othello. The two of them are very enigmatic. The two of them are evil, except for the fact that Bisola is more philosophical and more profound and everything. Uh, Again, the basic idea is that we're having the heroines getting married for love, and obviously this goes against the wishes of her aristocratic family, and that would lead to disastrous consequences, as we are going to see. Okay, so typically we're starting with the exposition or the introduction. We're trying to set the scene in Act 1, Scene 1, where we'll have a number of characters going and coming, making revelations, and through these revelations we get to know more about them, and we start to kind of make and build profiles for them. Those profiles are going to help us make informed assessments about their characters as you proceed. Um, um, we're we're not going to see much of the Duchess herself, the Duchess, by the way, doesn't have a name, and that would contribute to the universality of the message that she is carrying. She's every woman. She can be you, she can be my mom, she can be my daughter. It's a universal message that she was giving and delivering. So again, we're talking about this kind of courtship between the Duchess and her steward courtship, and that was followed by marriage. Again, he is a mere steward, one of the assistants in her royal court. Again, what is striking, we're not going to see the Duchess until later in the play. And this delay is deliberate and intentional upon the part of the author, and it happened even with Othello. This would create and build suspense. This would make us more curious about the character of the protagonist. Again, we're not going to see the Duchess until line 365. Who is going to fill all this void and this space? It's Antonio. Later, you're going to find that this is for good reasons. We need to give him space so that when the bombshell drops, we say, yeah, he is worthy of it. What was the bombshell? The bombshell is him getting married to the Duchess. Remember, he is only a steward and she is a queen, right? So when we get to know that they got married, we wouldn't be surprised because the writer is preparing us for that by telling us that Antonio is smart, that Antonio is a diplomat, he is politically savvy, he is a good judge of characters. See? So this profile building when it comes to Antonio is very important. It may mitigate the shock. We ourselves are going to get shocked because of the differences, the class differences. Okay, clearly by the time the marriage unfolds on stage, we are in possession of a good deal of information about the dramatic world in which it is taking place. So Webster seems to be providing us with a dramatic context against which to respond to his representation of love and marriage. Okay, well, the first thing that strikes the eye, that meets the eye, would be the comparison that Antonio is going to make between the royal court of Malfi and the royal court of France. The first scene in the play has Antonio and his friend Delio talk about Antonio's latest and last visit to France. Who is Antonio and who is Delio? They are courtiers, they are stewards, and they work in the royal. And we see them on the stage and they are talking about Antonio's trip, diplomatic trip. So Antonio has been away in France, and Delio asks him what he thought of the court of the French king. And Antonio is going to start to tell us about the French royal court, and whatever he says about the French royal court does not apply to the Malfi court. If he admires the French court, it means that he thinks very little of the Malfi court. If he says that the French court is full of good counseling, is full of, good counsels and everything, he is saying that the Malfi court lacks all of that. If he is saying that the French court doesn't have any corruption, it means that he is alluding to the fact that the Malfi court is full of corruption. I mean, he is especially admiring the king, the French king, who considers, cleansing his court of sycophants and flatterers as something divine, that he is divinely inspired to do that. And it's all, his good governance is all God's work rather than his own. Very pious and very religious indeed. So as you can see, when Antonio talks about the French court, he speaks about it very admiringly, very lovingly, and he starts to even use analogies and comparisons. He is going to talk about the royal court of France, saying that it's very pure. It's like having a public fountain. You need to remember and note that in the 16th and the 17th century, they didn't have faucets in their houses. They didn't have running water. Now, in any of our houses and flats, you go and you turn on the tap and you have fresh running water. No. During the time, or at the time, there were only public fountains, a place where you have a public kind of tap, and you get money, water from there. It's a fountain that has pure water. And it's in the interest of everybody that this public water remain pure. And obviously, if it's contaminated or poisoned, this is going to affect the whole neighborhood. So Antonio is saying that a royal court is like this public fountain. You need to make sure that this royal court has no corruption, people are good, people are pure and honest. Because if they are not, they are going to be exactly like uh, poisoned and contaminated public fountains that affects the well-being of all the people. It's a very vivid image and a very vivid and powerful analogy that he is making. Again, if it tells you something, it tells you that Antonio is very eloquent, that he is very politically savvy. Again, this is building a profile for him so that when we get to know that the Duchess gets married to him, we're not surprised. We're not surprised. We will be surprised, I promise you, but the surprise is not going to be like a bombshell or something. So Antonio's language in describing the French court is distinctive. Again, like I said, he has those analogies that he is using. He's using this big extended simile, and it becomes a metaphor over time. Again, he is comparing royal courts to common fountains, and you shouldn't be expecting nothing short of pure silver drops in those common fountains or royal courts. Otherwise, it gets contaminated and poisoned. So the common fountain from which everyone drinks should be pure, and if it is poisoned, meaning to say corrupt, it spreads its contagion throughout the land, and obviously this would lead to the death and disease, spreading across. Very vivid and powerful metaphor and image. So again, pure common fountains would be a reference to the French court. Poisoned and contaminated ones would be a reference to the Amalfi court, where people there are kind of beset and surrounded by flattering sycophants, people who are servile and self-seeking. Again, if the public fountain or the common fountain is good, and if the royal court is good, that would be the work of heaven, and that would be the kind of blessed government that we have in the French court. Again, obviously, they are not going to spend the rest of their lives talking. Bussola will come in, and we'll get to know who Bussola is, and is going to be followed by the cardinal. Again, who is seeing them from afar? It's Antonio, and Antonio is going to be commenting on what he is seeing because he knows Bussola in and out. First of all, Delio is going to inform Antonio about Bussola, saying that I knew this fellow 7 years in the galleys for a notorious murder, and it was thought the cardinal subordinate it. Delio is telling Antonio that Bussola has just come out of prison because he was charged with murder. He murdered somebody, and people are rumoring and saying that the cardinal, who happens to be the brother of, who is a royal family member and the brother of the Duchess, he is the one who ordered the killing. So again, if anything, it tells you about the corruption in the Malfi royal court. So again, this is bad. This is corruption in the Malfi royal. So which is the ideal court and which is the real court? Of course, the ideal standard court would be the French court, while the real corrupt royal court would be the Malfi and the Italian court. Again, people would kind of look at and feel the similarities between the Malfi court and the court of King James I, who had been on the English throne for 10 years, and he was also a corrupt king with a corrupt royal court. So James' court was infamous for its profligacy, which means that he was kind of extravagant. He spends money and he is desolate and bad and everything. He used to shower his favorites with money and offices and privileges. And again, this is reflected in the Malfi court. Okay, so with the appearance of Musola, who is again an assistant to the cardinal and a hired killer. If you want to get rid of somebody, you hire him and he does the job for you. When we get to know Busola more through his soliloquies, we get to know that he is deep. He's not just another killer. He is very deep, and his motivations for doing what he is doing would be that he wants to be socially better. He wants to be something. He wants to climb the social ladder, and he's not given the opportunity. So he feels sad and he lashes out at society. It's as if he is taking revenge from the entire society for not giving him the opportunity to climb and be socially better. And if we talk about this kind of character, Busola, we're going to find him repeated in many tragedies of the time. He presents the character of the malcontent, the malcontented character who lashes out at society. He is not high in rank. He walks in the royal court and he witnesses, or he is witness to what is happening, corruption and everything. But he is ready to be part of this corruption if it means advancing his agenda of becoming better. So when we talk about the malcontent, actually this is a feature and a characteristic of the revenge tragedy. The revenge tragedy has a number of conventions and has a number of characteristics, and the character of the malcontent is one of them. And who is the malcontent here? It's Musola. So the malcontent is a character who is consumed with disgust at the corruption and stupidity of courtly society, and who vents his spleen, his hatred, by railing against it, by attacking it. In our play, this role is played by none other than Busola. So Busola is given the opportunity on the stage to talk about his what he thinks of other characters. He attacks the cardinal, of course, not in their presence, in their when they are away. Busola attacks the cardinal and Ferdinand, and the cardinal and Ferdinand are the brothers of the duchess. He attacks them for presiding over a courtly environment where loyal service, no reward, where only flattering panders prosper. He's trying to say that those guys who are royal family members are ruling, and under their watch and under the rule we see that only flattering and flatterers and sycophants and insincere people are getting promoted, but people who has merit have no place. So his language is extraordinary, colorful, and energetic. Busola, because of his verbal invectiveness, because of the power of his speeches and language, uses very powerful images. Busola identifies the brothers of the Duchess with scavengers and insects. He manages to convey both their contemptibility and their voracious appetite for the rewards that come with princely favor. Uh, so that would mean that it's not only one person that we're having who is wise and smart, and it's not only Antonio who is smart and wise and everything. Busola is also smart and wise and philosophical. Both of them are low born, and both of them entirely depend for material success on the patronage of their social methods. They work for people, and it's up to those people in high places to promote them, to elevate them or not. But both of them are low born. So what do we need Busola for? Busola and his role contribute significantly to an important aspect of the play, which is the examination of class relations in a highly stratified society. Um, Again, we're stressing the fact that Busola is using his wit and his intelligence and his satire, and he levels his criticism at the patent system that favors the flatterers over those who deserves, those who have merit. Again, in spite of the fact that both of them are low-born and both of them are smart and ambitious and everything, Busola is no match to Antonio, because Busola is kind of corrupt at heart. He is a killer. And Antonio knows that very well. He knows Busola in and out. He knows that Busola is ready to do anything to get elevated and promoted. Again, what Antonio is going to say about Busola tells us more about Antonio and how much of a good judge of characters he was. This is what Antonio says about Busola. Yet I observe his railing is not simple love or piety. Indeed, he rails as those things which he wants would be as lecherous, covetous, or proud, bloody, or envious as any. He says, I understand him in and out, and I stand why I understand that why he is railing and attacking. It's not that he is pious, he is religious, he is God-fearing. No, far from it. He rails at those things which he wants. I mean, he wants to be promoted like those flatterers. He wants to be uh, um, elevated at whatever cost. And he is as lecherous, a cheat. He is as covetous, as proud as those guys that he is lashing out against. So again, if anything, and as we're going to discover later, Antonio is a good judge of characters. Again, at the end, when he gets married to the Duchess, we don't get surprised or shocked. So again, Bussola is torn between an acute awareness of the social and moral deficiencies of the patronage system and a longing for social advancement that binds him to it. So he is torn apart between those two streams or extremes. He wants to advance, and at the same time, he thinks that the system is corrupt. So Bussola may despise the yes men who thrive in the courtly milieu, but at the same time, he wants to share in the material prosperity they enjoy. He may remind us of the character of Iago, except for the fact that he is more profound, and he has a level of moral awareness that is absent from Shakespeare's viciously resentful inside Iago. He is morally aware. He's not a self-confessed rogue. This is how we normally describe Iago. He's not empty. No, he is very profound. So again, this is the royal court, and we have the family, and we have the Cardinal and Ferdinand, and these are the brothers of the sister, the Duchess, and obviously they are hostile and against the prospect that their sister may remarry. Again, for obvious reasons. Remember that they are ruling along with their sister, and if she gets married, perhaps her husband will take all the benefits and the privileges. So why not accepting any marriage? Both brothers seem to be worried that their widowed sister will succumb to temptation and undertake a marriage that would damage the family honors. This is the excuse, family honors. They also appear to be afraid that because she is a widow, she is more likely to want to marry a second time. Obviously, there is nothing wrong with that for her to get married, to remarry again. Again, what they are saying reveals a lot about the attitudes towards women during the time. We're talking about the early modern times where women were still subjected to all kinds of stereotyping, doubted, thought very little of, not given agency, um, feared in a negative way, talk about honor and all those kinds of things. So those attitudes towards women were very misogynistic. There was a great deal of misogyny, women hate or hatred. So the brothers' attitude tell us a great deal about early modern ideas about women and family honors. Their fears are in large part fueled by anxieties about female sexuality in general and of widows in particular, who were thought to have a much stronger appetite than men. That's why we find the cardinal telling his sister that widows' vows never to remarry commonly last no longer than the turning of an hourglass. It's only 1 hour and all those vows about not marrying dissolve. Again, there is a legal aspect to it. So during the time when a woman married or got married, she moved from a position of legal subservience to her father to being legally subject to her husband. So a widow, especially if she inherits wealth from her dead husband, could claim an alarming degree of independence. This is what they are fearful of, that she may be independent and she has the law on her side. And she may, as a result, presume to choose her second husband herself rather than marrying in accordance with her family wishes. This is their deepest fear, obviously. And this is what is worrying the cardinal, who warns his sister not to take your own choice. Again, you would also add to that the fact that she is the ruler of the land. So she is independent on a number of counts. One of them that she is a widow, and by law she can choose her husband. And she doubles down on that by being the duchess who manipulates the threats, who rules and everything. Again, they feel very uh, nervous about the power she now wields as a duchess who presides over her court. So obviously, it's not about family honor that we're talking about. We're talking about privileges that they are afraid of losing. So neither Ferdinand nor the cardinal says outright that what they fear is that their sister will marry beneath her. But this uneasiness about rank is strongly implied in the advice they get. Maybe you would add also the fact that she may get married to somebody beneath her rank. And obviously, this is tarnishing the honor of the family as they see it. And this is Ferdinand talking about just that. He's telling his sister, you are a widow. You know already what man is, and therefore let not youth, high promotion, eloquence. I mean, it's telling her that you may find somebody who is youthful, I mean, young, he knows how to use words, and you may fall an easy victim to those temptations. So I am warning you. And the cardinal is telling, no, nor anything without the addition, honor, swear your high power. I mean, he's trying to tell her, please remember that you are a woman of high blood. You belong to the royal family. And obviously, um, your choices are limited. They are limited to the limited circle of royal families like yourself. Um, okay, so let's take a 10-minute break, and then when we come back, we continue. Okay, everyone? Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll see you in 10 minutes, inshallah. Hello, can you hear me? Hello. Hello. Are we back, everyone?
Hello, doctor. Yes, we got it.
Oh.
Yes, I'm back, doctor.
Yeah. Can I ask you to raise your hands so that I can know who is here and who is not? Okay, good. Okay, so how do you find the play so far? Okay, please drop your hands. Which do you relate more to? The Duchess of Malfi or Othello? Which play do you relate more to? Hmm.
Well, obviously, as a woman, I would relate more to the Duchess of Bath.
Mhm. But you also have this Demona in Othello. She was also a woman, right? But yeah, true.
Yeah,
The Duchess, especially when you see that we haven't seen the Duchess in action, you're going to like her all the more when you see her and you get to know what she did. Yeah. Okay, Abdulaziz.
For me, Doctor, actually, I prefer Othello because I saw this play several times, and I saw it also on the YouTube uh, with the different movies and the players. So this is why I love Othello's story.
Okay, nice. Okay. So how far did we go so far? I mean, obviously we're building a profile for Antonio. Of all the characters that we have seen so far, Antonio stands out as the most politically savvy, the most, um, astute, intelligent. Again, we also saw Bussola, and people would say that perhaps Bussola would be more profound, especially because of the nuggets of wisdom that he gives us from time to time, having those kinds of commentaries on the corruption of the royal court and everything. But we need to remember that Bussola is also a killer, a hired killer. You cannot compare him to Antonio, who never committed a crime in his life. Again, that can also a big reason why I mean the Duchess chose Antonio over anybody else, including Bussola. Both of them are low-born, but she chose Bussola, obviously because I'm sorry, Antonio, because of his merits, because of what he does, not what he inherited, obviously. So again, we're talking about the excuses that the brothers are citing in order to prevent their sister from getting married, and obviously they talk about her being high blood, the reference to her status, the fact that she is um, honorable, the fact that she is um, a royal family member, and everything. Again, that also would kind of demonstrate how class insecure those guys are. They are afraid that she will fall into the arms of a lower class man, which she eventually did. So when over time they learn that their sister has indeed remarried, they lead to the conclusion that her second husband is of humble origin and humble birth. And that's why from time to time you have people like the Cardinal shouting and talking about the royal blood of Aragon and Castile and how that can be, uh, uh, you know, uh, contaminated if she gets married to the wrong guy. And obviously, they don't believe in this cross-class marriage schemes. This for them constitutes a tainting or corruption of the family's pure noble blood. Again, uh, the brother's insecurity and nervousness reflects something that was beginning to kind of appear during the time. It's the idea of merits as opposed to inheritance. So we're seeing signs and signals of social mobility. People who are common can climb the social ladder through their hard work and they can become something. This is starting to appear during the time, and the brothers and all those royal family members were fearful of this prospect that at one point they may be displaced from their possessions that they have inherited, not earned, and people with merit, people who work hard, can replace them. So those in power were fond of claiming that a fixed and rigid social hierarchy was divinely ordained, but the reality was restless movement up and down the social scale. And obviously they were fearful of that. There appeared a class of people who didn't inherit their wealth, they didn't inherit uh, prestige. All they did is that they worked very hard and they became something. These were lawyers, merchants, administrators, and one of them happens to be Antonio himself. So this erosion of the social hierarchy was accompanied by a heated debate about whether noble blood or personal merit was more deserving of honor. So as you can see, with the Duchess of Malfi, we can almost feel that the aristocratic order, which was dominant during the time, is in a state of crisis, threatened by men like Antonio, who is an able administrator who, as we will soon learn, captures the heart of a high-born woman more impressed by merit than rank. So again, their attitude, I mean, I'm talking obviously about the Duke, sorry, about the Cardinal and Ferdinand. Their attitude towards the Duchess marrying is determined not only by their ideas about women, but also by their ideas about class boundaries and the nature of marriage. Um, Contributing factor is what they think of marriage. And according to them, marriage is a union between a man and a woman. And obviously, those two individuals don't choose. They are not allowed to choose. Uh, uh, um, so this kind of union should not be chosen by the individual, but by the family, and not for reasons of love, but with a view to uh, uh, enhancing family power and maintaining elite exclusivity. Again, this idea of marriage as a union between families rather than individuals was also challenged by an alternative view that was also appearing at the time. It's called the companionate ideal of marriage, which placed love and compatibility above the demands of family honors. So again, we're talking about Antonio, um, who is a commoner. Again, we're building up a profile for Antonio. Um, he is depicted in terms of his well-developed and credible political ideas. Um, Again, we know a lot about him from his revelations and what he does and what he thinks about the other characters. Um, there will come a time, or there will come, yeah, will come a time when Antonio will, kind of make assessments about the different characters. Bussola, the Cardinal, Ferdinand, and the Duchess. And through his assessment, we get to know that he is well suited to be the Duchess' husband. So the fact that it is he who is selected to provide the audience with information about different characters would give you the opportunity to see him fully and to see his qualifications in judgment and assessment. Um, Antonio is also treated with considerable respect. Not only is he allowed to enlighten the spectators as to the natures of the play's main characters, his merit is emphasized when he is announced as the winner of some kind of joust. It's a game like when people fight each other individually. So again, it's not only that he is superior mentally and intellectually, he is also physically superior. So by investing the figure of the steward with so much authority, Webster is presenting a direct challenge to the elitism and caste pride represented by the Duchess brothers. Um, and let's listen to what Antonio has to say about the Cardinal and Ferdinand. Um, Again, he seems to be a very good judge of characters. He knows them in and out. He knows that those two brothers embody political rottenness. For him, the cardinal may play the role of a brave fellow in company, in front of people, but underneath he is a melancholy churchman given to inveterate plotting against his enemies, not averse to bribing his way to the top of his world. This is a very harsh judgment and assessment. He is saying that the cardinal is not brave as he tries to impress on everybody. He's a sad, melancholic individual who plots against his enemies, and he is ready to do anything to be on top of his profession. And then he moves on and talks about the character of Ferdinand, saying that he may impress you as a suave Renaissance prince, but beneath the surface lies a most perverse and turbulent nature. And he says that sometimes he acts like a judge who pretends to sleep over the bench only to entrap offenders in their answers. So as you can see, through Antonio, the play identifies both brothers with a talent for dissimulation. They are actors who use performance to control and dominate others. And then we have Antonio talking about the Duchess. According to him, she is a paragon of womanhood. She is a model. And he says that it is true that she is the sister of those two corrupt brothers, but she is uh, pure and innocent. He says that her speech is enchanting without being in any way sinister, and her countenance is so lovely that it could cure paralysis. Obviously, this is a bit of exaggeration. He says that when you look at her and you have paralysis, you will be cured. And obviously, he may have been in love with her, but he wouldn't dare to tell her, of course, because of the barriers, the social barriers between them. So he doesn't only talk about her virtues, he also talks about her physical beauty. He also speaks about her chastity. He says that she may attract men through her beauty and eloquence, but these are coupled with a divine continence that cuts off lustful thoughts and that endows even her dreams with a purity that other women, including those who have just been to confession, fail to match. This is very hyperbolic indeed. It can also be very prophetic. Perhaps he was in love with her, but and those are the words of a man in love. But obviously, he couldn't have told her that. Antonio concludes that the Duchess ought to be a model for other women to emulate and follow. Again, in praising the Duchess, he seems to be exaggerating and hyperbolic. Again, this was typical during the time. We had this kind of love poetry that was full of exaggeration, where the poet has this tendency to idealize the love lady or option. So again, Antonio's praise of the Duchess is excessive. However, this makes it clear that by the time the Duchess begins her courtship of Antonio, we know that he is in love with her. Okay. I think we're going to stop on this note and with this item. I don't want to bombard you with information as we have already covered a lot yesterday and today. I want you to read the Duchess of Malfi and to try to make those comparisons between the Duchess of Malfi and Othello. Again, both of them are tragedies. Both of them share ideas. Look at that. And I'll see you next week, inshallah. Do you have any questions for me before we call it a night?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, and I'll see you, inshallah, next. Assalamu alaikum.